How do you like New York?
I love it. It's what was the beginning of Woody Allen's Manhattan that I idealize it. I lived there from 2010 to 12, so this is me returning, and I felt like I have unfinished business with New York, but it's amazing. For me, it's the best city in the world. So yeah, I love it.
Hi, this podcast is a conversation between aspiring students and successful alumni about their core beliefs beyond their careers. Today we are welcoming Zane Culkstena, class of 2003, and Aleksis Visockis, class of 2026.
So I've been there once when I was in States for a short trip. And did you ever get that feeling of it's a huge metropolis, right? And there's so many people around and so many things to do, but suddenly you feel alone. Did you ever get that?
No, because in both occasions, when I lived there, once for 2 years and then now for 6 months, I knew exactly what I'm doing there. Mm-hmm. So I think New York is a very cool city. You know, mm-hmm. If you're like a vase and you have tiny cracks, it will damage you. Right. It will destroy you. There's no doubt. And also, there's lots happening, as you say. It's very confusing, so you can get disorientated or just overwhelmed. But if you know that you're in point A and you need to get to point B, and you're very sure about what you're doing there, everything becomes, very easy, mm-hmm. in a way, it's an interesting feeling. It's like, even the noise and getting around the city, you know exactly where you're going, so none of that actually, disturbs you or messes up with you.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I think that a lot of SSE students actually struggle with is the thing that you mentioned of knowing exactly where to go. Mm-hmm. When did you get that feeling of, okay, I know exactly, maybe not what my purpose is, but for that specific thing, what I want to do? And where do you get that clarity of mind?
Yeah. No, I resonate very well with that, and I have quite a few friends and also employees who are, either recent SSE Riga graduates or graduates, a few years ago, and I see how much they beat themselves, and that they don't know exactly or it's not clear, and I always tell them, chill. There's, in my opinion, with few rare exceptions, once you have just one special gift, for music or for math, most of those who said SSE Riga are multi-gifted, say they were good in every subject at school. So it's very hard to understand in this world where there's so many opportunities, which one to pursue, and you always have this FOMO. Okay, I picked this one, but I'm missing out on all these ones. In my case, I think I started having some understanding at 28, okay, and actually understood what I'm doing and where I'm going around 33. So please don't give you. I know it's super frustrating, and it's actually deeply, as well. I don't know. It's kind of damages self-confidence sometimes. Externally you can be very confident, but internally you're struggling. But you just have to tell you have to know that you'll be fine. It's part of the process, much like, I don't know, puberty.
Sure.
It comes with some side effects. This is what happens once you're in 20s. And I said, few will be, just as I told, they will have very specific talents, or they will find themselves in very specific circumstances that made their way very clear. But as I told, for most of talented, multi-talented people, it takes time, and I think many of us are too hard on ourselves.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of the things that you just mentioned, I think I definitely resonate with heavily. And maybe just to get some sort of a relatability perspective, you know, you were at a time at SSE where, you know, just looking back at sort of some of your peers and also you, a lot of change makers came from your years. Out of curiosity, what were your sort of some of the big interests or sort of maybe the organizations, or how were you sort of involved in campus, and maybe how did that help at least a little bit to gain that sort of understanding?
Oh, absolutely. I think as I was coming here, I was kind of thinking, and it's sometimes hard to distinguish what part of your experience relates to Stockholm School of Economics and what part of that experience just relate to the age group you're in, you know. Many, you know, my formative years, you know, my closest friends, my husband right now, you know, so, you know, lots of love and lots of friendship and a lot of very important experiences happened in that period. And as I told, it's hard to tell, is it age? What if everyone in that age have, you know, similar, very, you know, formative experiences? So that part I sometimes wonder, but SSE Riga is very good at not only giving you, you know, fundamental academic and professional, you know, skills and knowledge and competencies, but it really gives you a lot of freedom to do different kind of projects. So I was the president of Student Association, so sky was the limit. You do whatever. We organized first ever student fundraising, you know, campaign. That's when the first time sofas appeared downstairs, you know, at that point there were none. We organized first arts festival, so we call it Jeju, you know. It has changed and so over the years, which is totally fine, but you know whatever you think and you do it, and I think it's a very nourishing kind of very fruitful environment to try out many things. You kind of experiment actually with what you want to do in your life later on here. So pretty much everything, we experimented at that time has come in some, you know, fruition, or I don't know what that's the word, but it has come to life afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
With regards to education and sort of tying it also back with your current experiences, and I hear this a lot, especially from, you know, the leaders and things of that kind, about this idea of lifelong education. That seems, just from like a devil's advocate point of view, it seems like a great idea. But some people have this, for example, geographic inability to have that geographic, you know, mobility and sort of financial ability. And so my kind of core question is like, what are maybe the tools for lifelong education that sort of like, you know, an average Joe could take on, and what made you recognize the importance of lifelong education? Well,
you asked a couple of questions, meaning like when it comes to average Joe, meaning that's a question for the Ministry of Education and also Ministry of Welfare, under which we have state employment agency, and I know we are lagging behind substantially when it comes to lifelong learning, you know, so percentage of people that not only within last year learned something, but the proportion which does it more or less regularly, and then you know, you look at Estonia and even some other very comparable countries. I'm not even talking about Nordics. We have a long way to go, and meaning there's different kind of theories about how, why, and what you should allow to study during the work hours. Of course, it's complicated for employers. They pay not only salary, they pay also taxes for someone who will most likely leave in a short period of time. So I don't want to go into that one. It's a whole different conversation. But for me personally, I've always divided my life into periods of, I don't know, absorption and absorption, if that's even a word. So, you know, you feel after a certain time of working professionally that you have just run out of battery, and, you know, you need to get in different environment. In my case, I need a structure, so I cannot learn by myself. I need some punishments. I need some structure. I need some deadlines. You know, so and that's why, you know, I have 3 higher educations, and who knows, probably will have one more, because that's what gets me organized, you know. But when I know it after a couple of years, I know I've exhausted some of my intellectual abilities and also the energy, and then I said, okay, I'm ready to go back in school. But then once you're in school for 2 years, like I was at Columbia, at the end of it, you think like, Jesus, who needs these papers? You know, it's like, who will ever read that thesis? What will it change? Like nothing. And then you have the opposite feeling, like you're like, okay, I need to go and apply this, you know, and this is where I'm now as well. So I have plenty of things I have to do after the 6 months in New York, and fingers crossed, for managing to do at least part. Did I answer your questions?
Yeah, I mean, sort of, but like, say that we have a case where, you know, you just can't take. What I'm trying to insinuate here is, you know, there's tools such as for lifelong learning. One is just books, generally, maybe, I don't know, taking on a new skill or whatever. And what I'm trying to connect it to is sort of my next question. I think I'll go to that immediately. The world seems a lot more polarized every year. It seems that perhaps that's not even true, but I think from the content we consume on social media and large media outlets, it just seems that there's so many different narratives to explain one situation that you kind of have to weave through the jungle of, pardon my French, bullshit to figure out the truth. And this is what has been really sometimes keeping me up at night, figuring out what is the truth in many situations that are both impacting my life and the people around me. Sure, using analytical, you know, thoughtful skills and stuff like that, but like, what tools do you use, or sort of what are your mechanisms to figure out the truth in many things?
Well, it's again super complicated and will become increasingly complicated, you know, with AI and otherwise, you know. But you do the best you can do, you know. You try to follow the media outlets you trust, you know. You try to read the books of professionals within the field. You always leave a small door for, you know, other opinions or the opposite opinions. And, you know, I myself have increasingly struggled with that. You know, you're hardcore, you know, libertarian, so you think like, you know, all Republicans are, you know, are insane, you know. But then, you know, once in a while you meet extremely well educated and patriotic and good person who happens to be and can you know, can explain their opinion, and I think you have to be open to talk and absorb as many different opinions as possible, and kind of always you know, be ready for, you know, the fact that at one point of time or a bit later on you might be wrong, you know. I was hardcore COVID, you know, vaccinator. Why can't everyone get their shit together and government is right? And you know, it's like I lost some friendships actually over that time, and I regret that honestly, because I was too hardcore. It's like too much of my life was affected by that, and I thought we could all get, you know, further by just agreeing to do what the experts are saying. But even experts are wrong, turns out, you know, and some of the parts definitely has been proven to be, you know, too much, too excessive, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's complicated. It's complicated. You do best that you can, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
What seems interesting is I do struggle with that as well, especially, I don't know, for some reason when I came back from the States, the thought that, you come from this, basically the free world, as they call it. And you think, I spent there for a year, and I thought I came back and I knew, everything, and that my opinions were of correct nature. And getting really humbled by realizing that, hey, you are actually wrong, and sort of accepting that and changing your mind. And, everybody likes to say that they're open-minded until your views are really questioned. And
no, it's super difficult.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Actually, on topic of that, your recent sort of media outings, I've seen the fact that you mentioned sort of thick skin and sort of the necessity about it. What we see a lot in, and I think you would also see that with maybe some of your younger employees, maybe, that they're soft in general, that they're very soft. Personally, my parents being brought up in the Soviet times, sort of the thick skin and sort of just character building is very, very key to my upbringing. But once you turn to you start talking to your peers, that thick skin sort of appears as a aggressive tone when you speak to them. What I'm trying to say is, where do you find the balance between a generation that was affected so heavily by an oppressive regime and a generation that basically has all of its opportunities presented to them, and due to the fact that they don't have that stronger upbringing, they're, I don't know, perhaps weaker mentally?
Yeah. No, it's meaning every generation is different, and every generation, poses challenges or, misunderstanding to the previous one. So that part is kind of probably not new, but I think that the part of the softness actually comes from sort of focusing too much on oneself. So it's a lot of me world, how I feel, what I want, and so, and narcissism doesn't have to be only about liking yourself. You can despise yourself, but it's still a lot about yourself. And the part of what you said about, the being a bit harder, comes off as aggressive, probably, but in my head, it has to be about trying to achieve something or do something that has nothing to do with you or me, so. And of course, it's not that, straightforward, because anyhow, if you're doing a business, you're doing, it's your business, but the part that I think that I struggle on the opposite as an employer, and sometimes that the softness is this me. And then you say, but listen, we're trying to do, this has nothing to do with you, in a way, it doesn't matter. Even I do not matter in that respect. If you're thinking about advancing contemporary art ecosystem, or doing something for the future of jobs, or other topic, it kind of, you have to take yourself, you're still doing it and driving it, but there has to be something higher than, you have to believe in something higher than yourself, and then it becomes a bit different, so sometimes, and trust me, I'm telling it to you, but I mean, it's a constant work with oneself as well. Latvians are quick to get offended or keep a grudge, and I'm no exception, in that respect. But I'm trying to, the best professionals I know, they take nothing personally, nothing. You could tell them in their face this and this, and they would be like, no, that person had a bad day, or because, it's like, their core is fine, and they know you're doing something, or it's like in physics, every pressure is bound to receive a counter pressure. So the more counter pressure you're getting, the more pressure you're probably putting, or more you're advancing somewhere, you know.
Okay.
So that, I don't know, again, it's a long answer to a quite short, question, but I'm one of those who believe that Gen Z has to become, more about other things than themselves.
Okay.
If I can say, I don't know, but you might have a different, or you think it's not part of me.
Well, I think it's quite difficult because from my own perspective, it just seems like, you're in your university years where you really, the value added that you can provide to the people around you and just the whole world seems very, very minuscule, just because of the skills that you have. And so having that little bit of narcissism where you sort of take more initiative to better yourself in whatever way that it may be, so that later on, it's sort of as an externality. The fact that, during this period, I'm focusing more so on myself, but then later on, just as an externality, rather than just even a conscious thought, there's more effect to the general.
But that is fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, the softness when it comes to sensitivity later on when entering the workspace already. Being like, oh, I don't feel fine about this, or, I feel threatened, or I didn't feel comfortable in that. Or every employer, every SSE Riga, my age, older, younger employer, will tell you at least 3 funny stories about trying to hire young people and listening to some stuff that would have been impossible, or implausible 10, 20 years ago, so it's really shocking sometimes what people are saying. And that's the part I'm talking about. What you said is completely fine. Of course, nobody expects you during. I honestly don't expect anything, major for anyone under 30, unless, as I told, you have very specific gift, you understood it very early, or you were put in specific circumstances that allowed it to flourish. It's completely all right,
Okay.
I'm about different things.
Okay, cool. But actually, let's, coming back to the point about where you mentioned about the SSE Riga alums taking on the younger generation. 2 questions, and the first one is quite a short one. When you were doing your internships at SSE Riga, how did you approach them mentally in terms of, did you look at it more from like, okay, I don't actually remember if you had paid internships at the time. Did you have like some sort of a deeper purpose in your internships or maybe your first job? Or how did you approach that first 1-2 jobs post SSE or something like that?
My first internship was at World Bank and I loved it. And the second one, I think, was, the second one turned into a full-time job, if I'm not I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
But anyhow, it was DDB Now Magic. So I think in both of the cases, you are willing to try out potential careers. So there's no doubt. Meaning why that's the whole point. The point of that. I think the second aspect, and internship was mandatory also for my master's at Columbia University. And there I was super strategic, I researched, everything I could about organizations that have historically had some interest in the field. So I was going for contacts.
Right.
So that was a different kind of approach, but again, very successful because I start at nobody, even though it was masters and I, was already a bit older than the other ones and with quite some experience. I did like nothing at the beginning, but step by step, I actually befriended and became friends with the director of the organization.
Right.
And we developed this 3-year huge cooperation between Riga and New York, and it's still going on, So I would say try out your careers or look for the best sets of contacts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what I've heard and maybe experienced myself perhaps is you go through that first internship and you have in the back of the mind that, yeah, this is great for sort of trying out different things, but you're a week, maybe 2-3 in, and you're sitting at the office or whatever, and you sort of realize that maybe that internship just lacks sort of an inner purpose within you of like, maybe this is not for me. I don't really see the value added, I don't know, to the greater society or even to me, and I just feel sort of lost. What do you say to those, year 1, year 2 interns who are just like, damn, this is not for me, and then you start questioning every possible career option that could possibly.
No, I understand. First, you have to understand that, none of the companies, even those who pay you for internship, and my company is one of them, actually need you that summer. No, let's be honest, summers are always, slower period of time. So it's actually more of a trouble, than a gain,
right.
So be kind to those companies, because half is on vacation, another half just don't want to, entertain you or find a reasonable assignment, or just can't get there together, to structure it well. So it's understandable. But if you're proactive enough, and again, if you're the one who says like, listen, let me try this one, or what about that one, or I want to learn this one, or can you connect me with this one, and this, you'll be surprised how much you want to get out of it.
Right.
Trust me, also in New York.
Oh, I could imagine.
They were like, okay, so what do we, could you take on this limited edition merchandising things no one has cared to do about, and sort it out, do something about it. They don't need it, there were no hope, and I started doing my job, but in the process of that, I was being proactive. So I actually asked them, what about this, what is that? Can you learn me? What are you doing there? What are you doing there? How does this work?
Yeah.
So you approach it differently. So, and once you approach that one, I'm telling you, you can become friends of a CEO, and they will help you for the rest of your life, because you will become someone think has a great potential, or things which is great. So even if company hasn't prepared well to give you proper assignments and make that time interesting, and most wouldn't, because I'm sorry, they understaffed as well, and this this is what it is, so, but it's also too short of a period to actually put you in the projects that can both start and end. So there are many reasons why it's not possible unless you're a huge corporation like big investment banks who have programs set for that and so on and so forth. But be proactive and try to gain most out of it for yourself, contact-wise, experience-wise, and so on and so forth. And trust me, nothing is appreciated more than proactivity and so on and so forth. So it is always noticed, and if you manage to turn it around, trust me, a lot of amazing things can come out.
Like many alumni, you went into entrepreneurship. What made you take that leap of faith to go and try something of your own?
It's actually a bit more complicated. It's back in these days, very few of us went straight into entrepreneurship. I don't know even. So basically, you need to pretty much. It's by method of exclusion. You try casual. You try being employed, and you understand. I can do it, definitely. I can be good at it, but not enough. Or, I'm not quite, I want more, or I see it differently, I famously went to my own employer. I said, let's create a new company. I see it, and And then he was the one who says, but it's 40,000 investment. Do you have that money? And I said, I don't, So then our ways parted, and so on and so forth. So that thing was in me, but I went by method of exclusion. I had a traditional employment. I went into public, in a way, sector, meaning I was offered to become state secretary, for example, at 22. I declined that, but then I entered and started a non-profit, which was dealing with a lot with a state in the field of culture. So it all looks very nice afterwards, but in the beginning, it's pretty messy. You're just trying things out and fighting them by, step by step. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship, like kind of to become an entrepreneur, I would still suggest trying, traditional job in the sector that is of your interest for your potential, business as well, to gain the know-how, the contacts, the understanding, but also to reach that point where you understand, well, I'm not made for normal employment. I'm not normal. So again, no, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. That's another thing one has to understand. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. One day it's like, yoo-hoo, great. The second day, what am I even doing? And you that stamina grows, and you get used to that, and you think it's part of the process. But I told we need more entrepreneurs, but also we have to understand that not everyone will become an entrepreneur. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I want to move back a little bit to your time at SSE. Maybe you do have, or you don't, that's fine, a defining moment your time at SSE that shaped who you are today.
Well, probably Student Association. That year was a crazy year.
Okay. You were the president, right?
Yes, but we had an amazing team, and as I told, these are my best friends up to this day. So it's very serious.
What was the most impactful lesson or value you took away from your experience at SSE?
Again, there's many. You never know whom you'll be. If life will be other, but. Meaning SSE Riga really, you learn how to work hard and study and party and get things done and work throughout the nights and always deliver and it teaches you integrity and ethics. That's another thing. Most of Latvian school system, cheating was part of studying in elementary school or school, and then you arrive here and they say like, if you'll be out. There's no exceptions. And then the first day you say, okay, this is not an option. And ever since, it's not an option. It's like in your life or otherwise. And so there's many amazing things. I would it'd be hard to pinpoint one.
Then to the US. You mentioned the hard work that is showcased at SSE and sort of the grit that you have to put in order to just survive at SSE. But, we're a small school. If I'm not mistaken, there's around 3,000 alumni only. And, my question is, how does the sort of the culture at SSE in sort of the way they approach the work and the studies and stuff like that differ from Colombia?
Yes, so again, there's many nuances, but one that I struggled at the beginning a little bit, but I think it's more Europe and even more Latvia versus, kind of American culture in general. So it's not Colombia versus SSE Riga, it's Latvian culture against American culture. So here, what you try to do is to get, much like we spoke at the beginning, kind of the most objective view of the situation by reading as much as possible. Whereas in US, they don't care about how much you've read and to how many established authors you can refer to when explaining something. They're interested in what you are thinking, and at first you're like, well, who am I, to think, I'm not an expert in this, so best I can do is, gather all the information and then distill it, But they say the opposite, like, I know all of that. I'm not interested in you, being, good summary master, and this and this. I'm interested in your unique perspective, your view. And sometimes I remember it was actually a little annoying when in the class everyone raised a hand and said, but I think, and I was like, who are you, But you understand that that's a fundamental difference between cultures, and I see and I really appreciate that approach as well, because I said, well, ChatGPT will do summary better than you, so you're trying to bring your unique perspective to anything, and that's what's interesting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought, because I've been thinking about that sort of, not to bash SSE, but I think just in general, the lack of sort of unique ideas coming from the student cohort, just because everything is sort of in a recited way presented. Yeah. And I guess, how do you get into that mental state of, being confident in sharing your unique idea and sort of, how do you do it?
As I told, I think part of that is just we are our subjects of, our culture, Latvian, Lithuanian, or Estonian. They're three very similar, or other, but anyhow, post-Soviet, very similar cultures, and we're a bit shyer and a bit more introvert if you compare us with US and so on and so forth. But the way, again, to get over that it's just time, You always, you push yourself a little further and see, okay, I can do that. My classmates were Harvard graduates, and honestly, I didn't see a single difference between, mine and their performance. And then you feel like, okay, it means I can jump that, that height as well. Let's go further. And it's actually by doing, you jump a little further or higher, you jump further and higher again and again. And with that grows your confidence. So you need time, and you need, to go step by step, because that's another thing. Oftentimes, as I told, you're bored in your internship. You say, they don't give me any interesting tasks, so fuck it, la. This is not how you go about it. You seize every opportunity. You prove yourself in every point you are, every point, irrespectively of what the situation. Even if it's a tiny non-profit that, doesn't have a single employee, you'll make most out of it. You'll make it somewhat better, and that's how you prove yourself. Okay, I can do this, I can do that. And then, later, as I told already around 30, and with more and more international experience, you're like, okay, really everything is possible. You just have to work on that and know what you want, but that comes later, yeah.
You leaving to New York now, being a visiting researcher, family, that separation, no matter who you are, it must, how was it in general?
It's overall it was amazing. I've never spent that much time with my kids in my life. So it was really like a major team building event for family. Of course, you are unable to do some of the things academically and professionally that you wanted, because you have 24 hours, and I don't know, back in 2012 when I was there as a student, you have all the time by yourself. You get to plan it, you get to do whatever you want. Here it's like kind of there's quite a few people that have their own wishes and so on and so forth. So it's definitely it was a little challenge, but the part that it took away from the experience, it definitely added for something that I think is fundamental for life. Whereas I've always been very individualistic, and And I understood you need that backbone, and that backbone is your family, one way or other way.
The final question, which I do want to ask, I'm 20 years old, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life, but looking with retrospect, what advice would you give yourself, a 20-year-old Zane, looking back now? You're in your second year or third year of studies at SSE.
Yeah. And again, I'll start with disclaimers. It was a different time. We were not part of EU, it was a different economically situation. There were completely different, kind of possibilities. Possibilities were much more limited. So that has to be taken into consideration. But if anything, I would really try to tell her to chill a little bit, not to push yourself, not to demand. And I'm not saying I shouldn't have done anything I did. I'm super happy about everything I did. But that first question you ask, and I think it kind of, it brings it back to the fact that I think that you cannot know at that time, when you're 20, what you will become or what you should become. It's not possible. You should enjoy the ride and not push yourself or beat yourself for not knowing, what's the where the route takes you, or what's the end destination, So that probably really enjoy the ride, try out as many things as possible, and really it's amazing time to be alive. I don't know why so many people are so unhappy, it's puzzling me. But then again, I remember myself when I was 20 and I was all the time tense. I was all the time anxious, like, this is not clear, where am I going, what's happening, So it's again normal, but again, just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Very welcome.
Thank you for your insights. They were much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.